Sonja, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Nice to speak to you in English for the first time.
Yes.
We only have about 60 minutes, so we're going to dive straight into it.
Please.
Your favorite topic, the pelvic floor.
The core and the pelvic floor,
My question is, if we stop a random person on the street, will they know what the pelvic floor is?
I think they probably sadly won't. Like a big percentage of people will probably point somewhere around their belly or their lower back. Yeah.
Probably because of the word pelvis or pelvic, which will guide them. But why? Why don't we know about it? Why didn't I know about it for most of my life?
Such a good question. And I think the answer is so multi-layered, but I think
let's peel it.
Let's peel it here now. So I think that our cultural backgrounds, our history about everything that's below our belt line is very complicated. Our relationship to everything that's below our waist is really complicated. And depending on cultures in different countries, there is a different way to deal with all the dysfunction, pains, and issues we can have in our pelvic or pelvic floor area. So I think that this area has this awakening in the last decade that we are progressing and developing on so many levels of science and so many levels of human development. So we're able to speak about our genitals more freely and about the dysfunctions of the muscles around the genitals and sexual dysfunctions, pelvic floor pain, pelvic pain.
Is it a strong sexual connection?
So let's see it from this side. So I'm a physiotherapist. I'm in this field. I'm working in this field about 8 years. I'm coming from the background of orthopaedic and skeletal pain and athlete rehab. I'm looking at the system of the core muscles, and the pelvic floor is part of the core muscles. So I see myself as a core and pelvic floor specialist. It's part of the same system. So when you ask me if sexuality is a big part of that, then I say yes. Your core muscles and your pelvic floor muscles have the function of the sexual function is a part of what it supplies.
Yeah.
So yes, sexuality is part of the function of the core and the pelvic floor.
Is it the main function of the pelvic floor? Like if you mention to someone the pelvic floor, should they be thinking about the sexuality part of it, or are there so many other layers they should be thinking about before they jump into the connotation of the sexuality?
I give you a compare. If I tell you a function of your mouth is talking, would you say that this is the most important function?
Fair enough.
You also want to be able to drink and to eat and to kiss
laugh.
And all of these things.
Yeah.
Laugh, exactly. So it's one of the functions. But I can tell you that one thing really stood out to me, and that's why I specialized in the pelvic floor and core muscles, is that so much of our life quality and of our self-esteem and of our happiness in life and our self-worth is related to this area. And it is so neglected by the medical industry. If, for example, a young man comes to the doctor and he suffers from chronic lower back pain, and he also, with his chronic lower back pain, suffers from sexual dysfunction. Or he suffers from, and here we come to the other functions of the pelvic floor, he suffers from urinary incontinence. That means he can't hold his urine. Or he suffers from fecal incontinence, and he can't hold his stool in.
Yeah.
So sometimes there's so much shame around this area, or sometimes the doctor is not even going into this topic. There's this block of communication between the two, and then there's so many people that fall through the grid of the health system who suffer from fecal or bladder or sexual dysfunctions, which are not being helped.
So do you think because of our culture, because the culture has this sexual blockage in our minds that we don't want to go that route, the doctor doesn't want to go that route, the doctor doesn't want to check that, people don't want to talk about it, people are embarrassed to bring it up, do you think that hurts the pelvic floor name in our lives?
So I think in general you can say that
do you think it limits us from finding out more about it and paying attention to it because of that sexuality element to it?
Yeah, I mean, everything that's not addressed is being neglected. I think, again, if we come to the roles and the important roles of the pelvic floor, sexual function is one that is very important. Again, we talk about life quality. We talk about that it's part of the responsibility of your medical provider to also help you with those issues. It's part of your health. It's your sexual health. It's a big part of your life. But other than that, the pelvic floor has many other functions that are important, as we call it, like continence, the ability to hold in your pee and your stool, and the ability to, for example, carry a baby full term. So also the pelvic floor there needs to be able to carry through a pregnancy, deliver and give birth. If we think about the male perspective, the pelvic floor also there for athletes, bicycle riders, people that do weightlifting. So all of this is the core in the pelvic floor. And it's such a complex and beautiful system, and in my career I was researching more and more about the core, and I really always ask why. So when I started working in Germany, when I did my studies there 8 years ago, I was nearly burnt out. I was really young when I started with this job. And
did you know about the pelvic floor and its function in the body before you jumped into these studies?
So in our studies as physiotherapists, we do learn about anatomy of the whole body. We learn about every area of the body, about anatomy, about the pathologies that can occur in those areas. But in physiotherapy, when you finished your studies, you just have the base education, and afterwards you have to do more specializations. So pelvic floor physiotherapy is a very hands-on profession. So how does it look like when a person comes to see me? We actually do a very detailed assessment of the pelvic floor, which is first of all verbally, where we talk about things like where, if there's a pain, where the pain is located. We do a full body scan, like an orthopaedic checkup. We look at the posture, we look at the breathing. And then we also, if the person agrees and consents, we also do an internal pelvic floor checkup where we actually look at the muscle tension, we look at the organs of the pelvic floor. It's kind of like a gynecologist checkup.
Yeah.
So it's not for everyone. So not every physiotherapist is like, yay, that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
For me, I'm like so interested in that, and like it's just diving into this rabbit hole of studying more about the pelvic floor is what I do every day, and I learn so much more things about it every day, and it's just mind-blowing.
So, but you finding out more about it, specializing in it, you said it was coming from an area of you learning about the core and always asking why and why and why.
Exactly.
So what do you think made you interested to find out why and start peeling those layers of the core?
So I started saying that when I started studying in Germany, I was very young, and I wanted to give the best care to my clients with back pain, with athlete injuries, with chronic pain, and I felt that my treatment was kind of not leading to that point where I was like, hey, we're really getting to the root of the issue. I always asked why, because I never felt that we really targeted the root. Where is the root? So when you always go deeper and dig deeper and say, okay, but where does this back pain come from? Okay, but why does he have this posture that leads to the back pain? How do we give the client the best home exercise? How do we give him the best lifestyle advice to really treat the root cause? So then you can do those courses that specify, so you can learn about the different systems of the body in specific. So then when I found out, wow, the core muscles is such an important part of the body. So the core muscles is a combination, is a team of muscles consisting of your breathing muscle, your diaphragm, your deep abdominal and deep spinal stabilizers, and your pelvic floor. So when you look at them all together, it's like a ball. Yeah, that's why you call it the core. It's in the center of the body.
Yeah.
And when you research more and more about the mechanics of the core muscles and what relationship it has to the upper extremity, to the legs, and how back pain is managed, this is so interesting. So me being a pelvic floor physio comes from many aspects, but one of them is just my curiosity of how can we treat our clients in the most effective way to lead them to their best quality of life. That's basically it, and a few other background stories.
Yes, so tell me, so what got you into these studies, to wanting to be a physiotherapist? What led you there?
Okay, so...
It's because jumping into becoming a physiotherapist, it's not like you're going to solve everyone's problems. There's always going to be new people coming in, new people experiencing pain. So it's a noble cause, some might say. So what made you take this upon yourself?
Yeah, so, wow, I always wanted to be a physiotherapist. There was never like any time of my life.
Even as a kid?
I'm planning on this route since I'm 12 years old.
Wow.
So I knew I wanted to be a physio when I was 12. Also, like, because my mom was like really like helping me with kind of seeing my options. She's a job agent, you know, so that's like kind of, I had like all the options. She was like, look, this is all your options. I was like, wow, this physiotherapist thing sounds so amazing. And I actually was a physiotherapy assistant when I was 15. When I was 16, I started my studies.
Where in Germany?
In Germany, yeah.
Where?
In Munich.
Munich, nice.
Medical Academy in Munich. So with 16, I started my studies. With 19, 20-ish, I finished my studies. And then when I was 20, I started working. So I was very young back then.
So really from the age of 15, you've been exposed to this world.
Exactly. So since then, I just have this approach of like, seeing the detail, zooming in, but then also zooming out and seeing the big picture. And that's how you can tell, that I have a few years of experience, since it's easier for me right now to zoom in and zoom out.
Than it was a few years back?
Yeah. I feel we're like, blah, 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 blah.
No, it's good. It's good, yeah. Let it go. So, no, okay, so you always knew that this is what you wanted to do.
Yeah.
You've been exposed to it for a long time. Years of experience, do you feel different today than you felt 5 years ago when you were approaching a client?
Yeah, definitely.
In what sense? Like, what makes you, just the experience of being able to, is your assessment of a situation changed? Like, do you feel
Let's
like...
talk a bit more like about the pelvic, like about the, like, you want to like hear my experience as a physio or like my...
Anything. Anything.
Yeah, so I feel that the different experience being a physiotherapist back then when I started to where I am today is when you start, you're very naive. You think that you are healing people. You think that you are changing something in people's lives. And then as the years go on, you realize that you are the facilitator, and you realize that every person that comes to you, you ask them, why did you come in today? And when their answer is because my doctor told me to come, then you already know that it's not an inner motivator, and it's going to be a bit harder for the person to reach their goals. So today I'm well aware that I'm a facilitator, and people that are seeking my help, they have to have a certain readiness to implement lifestyle changes. So many people want help and many people want to overcome pain, but less people are really, truly ready to implement changes in their life, which is the thing that makes us progress, is change.
Yeah, and is it again, are we back to the culture?
I don't know if it's culture or just human nature, really.
Yeah, okay. Well, the first people you ever treated, was it athletes?
No, the first people I've ever treated. So when I was a physiotherapy assistant, I worked in actually a neurologic center with many kinds of disabilities and disabled children and adults in all ages. So that's where I started. I was very interested in neurology when I started out with my physiotherapy career, and then throughout my studies I thought I will go to a neurologic rehab. Actually, the first time I visited Israel was for a student exchange in 2013. We went to Herzog Hospital to the stroke unit,
Yeah.
And we worked there on the stroke unit. It was really impressive. I was very interested in neurology and neurologic rehab. And then after, when I graduated, I started working in orthopaedic rehab, so low back pain, like some athlete injuries, but also a lot of geriatrics, so older people in that area.
Yeah.
And that's where I worked for 1 year. And then I did my move to Israel. And then here I continued more in the orthopedic and athlete rehab area.
So do you see a lot of athletes regularly, like practicing professional athletes,
Yes.
aspiring athletes?
Yeah, so basically we worked in the clinic that I'm working. We are so in the clinic that I'm working at, we are taking care of the women's rugby team. So we see a lot of rugby injuries. Weightlifting, CrossFit is a big section that we're dealing with.
I always, rugby, obviously, everyone can associate injuries with rugby. But when people ask me why I don't do CrossFit, I always say, I don't want to get injured.
Yeah.
It just seems so, it's from the outside at least, ignorantly, it seems so wild. It's like my body is unable to do 100 pull-ups in 20 minutes, but I'm expected to. So I'm going to find some way that my body can pull me up that bar more than I can possibly do it. And then every time I see CrossFitters, they're always recovering from some injury.
Yeah, and thank God they do. Otherwise, I wouldn't have a job.
Do athletes, are they aware of the pelvic floor? Are they aware of its importance to the body? Do they take the measures to make sure it's part of their life to maintain the pelvic floor?
I wouldn't split the separation in athletes and non-athletes. I think like even for athletes, there is people who know and people who don't know. It depends very much on the sport. So we know that, for example, sports that has high impact has a different effect on the pelvic floor than, for example, swimming, or sport that has no gravity, or sports which is upside down, for example, like trapeze yoga or things that are without impact.
Yeah.
So we know that sports with impact are more challenging for the pelvic floor. For example, ball sports like basketball, things that involve more running, sprinting, jogging, sports where there is a lot of weight, so weightlifting, CrossFit is another sport where the pelvic floor is more under demand.
Yeah.
So basically,
sorry, I'm asking from the sense though that athletes, their bodies, like they need their body to function 100% in order to make it in their profession. And a regular.
You're talking about professional athletes.
Yeah, professional athletes,
okay.
or even aspiring professional athletes.
Yeah.
It's just, or even if you're an amateur athlete that your goal this month or this year is to run a marathon or whatever it might be, you need your body to function. Otherwise, you're wasting your time almost. So that's why maybe I would expect, or I would hope that maybe athletes would maybe understand their body better, have better awareness of their body, and maybe be more likely to be aware of their pelvic floor than the average person we stop on the street. Perhaps.
I wouldn't say that I could agree with that. I would say that people who move regularly may have a better connection to their body and may have better sensitivity. So when they notice that they're leaking urine when they do rope skipping, or when they notice pain with intercourse, or when they notice something when they're doing sports and they feel that their pelvic floor is developing symptoms, and they're maybe more likely to speak up and to seek help. I think that's maybe the difference.
Yeah.
But again, then we are back at the start where we said, okay, so then where do they go?
Yeah.
Which doctor, and then where will they send them? Are the doctors aware that there is pelvic floor physiotherapy?
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel that athletes have a maybe a higher chance because they could be more sensitive for their own bodies. But again, the question is, what do we do with it, and where do we go from there?
Yeah, and then there's I'm going to take you maybe peel another layer of connotation when it comes to pelvic floor. We spoke about that sexual connotation. Then there's the women versus men, where some men, I've spoken to men who think that only women have a pelvic floor.
Yeah.
Why?
Wow, well, maybe they, wow, it's sad. But yeah, I hear that a lot. And it's like women also just have pelvic floor when they're pregnant. Like they don't have pelvic floors when they're not pregnant. It's just like, yeah, it's just like this thing that's always there and it's just always functioning perfectly. And that's because we never talk about it. So the reason why maybe men are less aware of it is again a few reasons. Women's pelvic floor dysfunctions maybe get more scanned by doctors because they are more likely to see a doctor. Women are more likely to seek medical help for issues like pain with intercourse or any leaking or any pain. And also because they are likely to get pregnant, which is involving regular routine doctor checkups. So these problems will be more scanned, more talked about. So imagine now a man in his 30s, athlete, suddenly he has debilitating pain in his rectal sphincter or debilitating pain in his left scrotum. How likely is this person going to go to see a doctor? There's many men who are suffering years silently because, again, cultural reason, maybe shame. So that's why they won't speak up. So that's why for men it's really under-talked. Also men with each other. I mean, women are like, like hanging out in the evening, like, oh, yesterday I was like running to the bus and like I just like leaked some pee, or like, we're like talking about these things. And men are just like with each other, like, hey bro, yesterday I was like going home with this hot chick and like my butthole was on fire. It hurt so bad, like I had to go home and rest.
Not gonna happen.
Yeah. So for example, that's a good example for men. So a symptom that men could have in the pelvic floor would be, for example, tailbone pain or pain on the butthole, like on the muscle itself. It's a condition where men clench their pelvic floor and hold pelvic floor, for example, when they're stressed, which can lead to pain between the legs. So, yeah.
So the pelvic floor, it's a muscle.
The pelvic floor is a accumulation of muscles. It's about 3 muscle layers that are closing off the pelvic opening from the bottom.
And what are the most common issues with the pelvic floor, the combination of muscles? Is it weakness?
Yeah, so as far as the using terms, I'm happy you ask me if it's weakness, because I always like to make like a little distinction for my clients, because most of the people are worried, is it too weak? Is it like, it's basically always too weak, right? That's what we think about. Like if somebody has problems, it's weakness. But the world is so colorful, let me tell you, there's so much in between weak and not weak. So it's muscles, right?
Yeah.
And again, we go back when we talked about the core muscles, and you ask me, what is sex? Is it the only thing that is important and for those muscles? The same thing is for the pelvic floor muscles. So what is the function? We always talk about functionality. The functionality and the function of the pelvic floor is a few. So if we talk about holding in your stool and your urine, that's one. It's holding things in. The second function is expelling things, right? Once you want to go to the toilet, so it's expelling things. So the muscles have to relax. Another function is intercourse. There, it might be a combination of the two. It might be for the penetration, there might be some relaxation involved. And if there is an orgasm, there needs to be rhythmic contraction possible. Same thing for giving birth. Okay, so giving birth, we're not just only relaxing as we do when there is urine or stool to be passed, as actually a huge stretch of this muscle. So that also has to be possible without a huge tearing in those muscles, which can occur during birth. So these are the functions of the pelvic floor muscles. We have to be able to contract, but we have to be able also to equally relax, and we have to be able to coordinate between the two. So when I do a pelvic floor assessment, I don't care if a person is strong or weak too much. I care about their coordination and about their functionality. So I'm going with them through the assessment. Are you able to poop without straining? Are you able to pee and emptying your bladder fully? Are you able to hold your pee when you have a strong urge? Can you make it to the toilet? Do you have pain with intercourse? All of these things. Are you able to relax your belly and take a deep breath in your belly? We talked about the core muscles. So the breathing muscle is parallel to our pelvic floor, sits above the pelvic floor in the bottom of our rib cage. So if a person is not able to breathe fully, the pelvic floor will not be able to follow this motion and be flexible and functional.
Yeah, and with the so it's all about control,
Coordination.
coordination,
Yes.
coordination. So, and a healthy pelvic floor is a person that has coordination with using their pelvic floor
It
muscles.
has full function. They have the
So-
choice of all their functions.
So is it less? So when we look at it as a set of muscles, 3 muscles. You have
3 layers.
3 layers.
There's many muscles there. Yeah.
So 3 layers of
Yeah.
muscles. Do we look at these layers of muscles, or these? Do we look at the pelvic floor different than we look at other muscles in the body?
We sadly do. That's the
No,
problem.
but should we look at it in a? Does it have its own category of muscles?
Okay, so very nice question. So what's special about the pelvic floor muscles is that we have a mixture there. So what's the difference between your arm muscle and your heart?
I don't think I'm qualified to answer that.
I think you do. I
yeah.
think you do.
No, I don't know. I don't know is the truth. But
When I tell you skip a beat with your heart or contract your heart twice.
I'm unable to.
Exactly. So you have no control over your heart, right? Because it's one of your smooth muscles. It's controlled by your autonomous nervous system. Our arm, I can tell you, flex your biceps, show me where the beach is.
Yeah.
And that's in your control. You can do that. So our pelvic floor is separated in those 2 groups. There is muscles where I feel, I'm in an elevator and I feel there's a fart coming and I want to contract the muscles and I can hold that willingly.
Yeah.
And then
See, that's what you should be telling people, to sell the pelvic floor to people, to sell the understanding, is those situations.
Exactly.
How useful it could be in their lives.
Exactly. We're gonna get to the practical tips. We're gonna We're gonna give five practical tips.
Yeah.
We're gonna get to that. So the difference in between those muscles. So there is the ones that we can control, and there's the ones that are not in our control. So it's 2 different nervous systems. We have our central nervous system, which is taking our commands, bend the arm, and so on. And then there is the autonomous nervous system, where we have no influence, which is regulated by. So our heart is regulated by that, and the bladder, the bowels, all of these things we can't control. Now digest, now bladder expand. So that's things that happen out of our control. So that's what's so important. That's what's so interesting about the pelvic floor area, because we're coming here to like a new category. So me as a therapist, I need to decide now, is the problem that you're having, for example, not being able to hold your pee in, is this a problem of your voluntarily like muscle dysfunction? Is this a problem of your bladder? So I also need to know about the organs.
Yeah.
Or is this a is this a dysfunction of your lifestyle habits, of the things you're drinking, of the things you're eating, of your stress levels? So again, stress levels is something that is impacting our autonomous nervous system. Maybe you heard of fight or flight response.
Yep.
And rest and digest, right?
Yep.
So we're talking here about the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. These are controlling our organs. As it says, rest and digest. So we already know that's a hint for us. This is controlling our organs. So in many times when clients come to see me and they have, for example, a problem with a very strong urge to urinate, or they urinate every half an hour, so we need to find out, okay, where does this problem come from? Does it come from you not being able to coordinate your willingly your pelvic floor muscles, the outer layers? Is it because when you're stressed, you're clenching and holding in your belly, and you're clenching your your vaginal and rectal muscles? Is it option B, because of your sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system are imbalanced because you're so stressed that you're running in sympathetic overdrive and your heart rate is fast and your hands are sweaty and your bladder is either shooting out the urine all 2 seconds because it's so contracted and so small in that moment? Or is it just a poor lifestyle? You're drinking a lot of alcohol, you're drinking a lot of coffee, a lot of sugary drinks, bladder irritants. So you see, I can talk for hours. It's just because this area, there is so many ties running together. We have many stations to check.
Yeah, is there a most common station that affects the modern person?
Stress. Yeah.
Stress. And where does that hurt? Does that go into the autonomous nervous system?
Stress is affecting the whole body.
But specifically the areas of the pelvic floor.
No, I mean, that's where I'm specialized in. So that's the angle that I'm presenting you the stress with. I'm sure like a neurologist tells you about migraines and a dentist tells you about grinding teeth and, but yes, one very interesting thought that I follow the recent years and that brings me deeper and deeper into these rabbit holes is our subconscious and unconscious habits. So when we are stressed, we are developing strategies to balance ourselves, right? We're having maybe habits that we're customizing with the years because we are stressed. We're having maybe postures that we're going to because we are stressed. For example, most of the people will have more like a hunched position when they're stressed. Their shoulders will be closed, their chest will be closed, their neck will be tight. Maybe they will hold their teeth, kind of grind their teeth. Maybe when you notice yourself stressed, you notice you're breathing less. Maybe more of like a flat breath. Your abdominal muscles might be tight. You're holding them in. Some people clench their butts a little bit when they're stressed. All of those unconscious, subconscious reactions are written in the school books. You can see them everywhere. Humans are just animals. You can see our default positions when we're stressed.
Yeah.
So my biggest job with people is bringing the unconscious to your consciousness. So I'm telling you, oh yeah, like your pelvic floor is tight and unfunctional because you're unable to have a full expansion of breath because you're holding in your stomach muscles all day long, which is not healthy, by the way. And then it's like, oh, why is that? So if I would just ignore the rest of the story and I would tell you, go home and do breathing exercises. What good would that do if you're sitting hunched over and there is no space for your ribs to have a full breathing expansion? And what good does it have if we treat your neck pain and your headaches if you're clenching your teeth 24/7 and nobody's telling you that you're clenching your teeth because you don't know maybe yourself, maybe you don't notice. So 80% of my job is doing a thorough assessment with people and bringing the unconscious to the conscious so we can start somewhere, start at the root. That's why I'm always asking why. But why does your head hurt? But why are your teeth clenching? Oh, you're stressed. Okay. Like stress today is a diagnosis. We can work with it. It's a nervous system disorder. A stressed nervous system is a system that lives in sympathetic override. And sympathetic override has a physiological chain of events happening in the body. And our job as therapists is to unravel this chain of events and to treat that. But I'm a physiotherapist. That means I'm a therapist of the body. Now, our body is one part, but the boss is still in the brain, okay? Yeah. The boss is in the brain holding all the wheels and controlling everything. So I always point out that it's so important to work in a multidisciplinary approach. So I have a lot of amazing people I work with. I can refer my clients to psychologists, alternative practitioners, nutritionists, Ayurvedic nutrition. So I have so many ways. I have the classic route for people who want a clinic psychologist. I have the alternative sound healer. People have so many different angles of approach, and we need to treat this holistically. Yeah.
Did you tell me you're a yoga instructor as well?
Yeah.
Where did that come into play in your experience, in your life, in terms of where it started?
So yoga always played a role in my life. I grew up practicing yoga. I wasn't aware that it was yoga when I was practicing it. So my father was practicing very regularly, and I joined him in his practice, just like children. And
for fun?
Just for fun, exactly, stretching with dad. And then later on, I was focusing more on like functional training and doing the physiotherapy studies. It was like very technical, and I was like, oh yeah, this is amazing, very scientific and evidence-based. And then once I finished my studies, I fell in love again with yoga, and I was like, wow, this is so holistic, like the philosophy behind it, the mindfulness, and that's exactly what I'm trying so hard to cultivate in my practice, is teaching my clients to connect the mind and the body, be in your body.
Because you were saying that's the boss.
Exactly, the boss. So be there, and it's not important what you do. And I meet so many clients that come in and tell me, I do functional training, I do heat, I did weightlifting, and I do this 3 times a week, and I do that. And sometimes it's not important what you do, but how you do it. So if you're having a good relationship and a good connection to your body, it's so much worth. And if you're doing too much, that's also so much worth. Just having this mindfulness connection with the body is really important.
And your familiarity with yoga, your knowledge in yoga, do you think it helps you with your day-to-day physiotherapy treatments?
And so for me, I think I do this so long that it's just my being, my identity. So in my identity, I am a yoga teacher. I'm following the philosophy of yoga, but I'm also studying evidence. I'm keeping myself up to date with the latest updates of studies in the field of physiotherapy, but also other fields. So I do feel that all of this together is just really improving my practice, and I just do this because it's so much fun. It's so interesting. Like I can talk about all of these things for hours.
Yeah. How is the perception of yoga in Germany, in Munich? Is it as big as it is getting or has been getting in everywhere else? Everywhere else, I say.
I wasn't in Germany since
for a long time.
Yeah,
for a long time. But you still practice yoga? I mean, you say it's your way of life, but do you dedicate time for specific yoga? Again, I won't use terms here that I probably won't pronounce correctly. But do you do different yoga flows your way, develop things your way, recommend certain things to certain people from the yoga world?
I mean, I'm a yoga teacher. I give yoga classes, and I implement my practice in my treatments with clients. Yeah.
Very cool. So tell me, what would you say? What are the 5 tips to that average person we stop on the street that does not know about the pelvic floor?
Okay. So
the person that does not want to fart in a packed elevator.
First of all, do it. It's fun. Just for the fun. Bucket list. So my tips, my 5 top tips for a healthy pelvic floor definitely is daily movement snacks. So again, zoom in, zoom out. We don't have to do those maybe you heard of Kegels. That's
the only thing I've heard of when it comes to people mainstream wise talking about the pelvic floor exercises.
Yeah,
Kegels.
Exactly. So Kegels is a contraction of the pelvic floor muscles. So many people, that's the only thing they know. They think that's what you need to do. So as we talked about it before, many women and also men can leak urine because their pelvic floors are too clenched. That means they're doing a continuous Kegel or they're always Kegeling, and that's why they're leaking. Because if you imagine your pelvic floor like my arm, okay? So now my arm is straight, my elbow is straight, and I can bend my elbow until I touch my shoulder with my hand. So it's the full range of motion.
Yeah.
Now, if I do a pelvic floor contraction, a Kegel, I'm bending my elbow, right? So I'm Kegeling, I'm clenching all my openings in my pelvic floor, and I'm holding that the whole day. Now imagine the bladder is full and I'm sneezing and I need to contract to hold that impact to avoid the urine to come out.
I couldn't even imagine keeping it contracted the whole day.
There is people who are doing this unconsciously.
Wow.
Yeah, it's an unconscious stress reaction, like clenching the teeth. So when the pelvic floor is always slightly contracted, there's no range of motion to get even more contraction. So that's when the bladder starts leaking because the muscle is not in its function anymore. So Kegels, pelvic floor contractions, is a very specific and isolated exercise that I may give to patients who have an diagnosed weakness of the pelvic floor, which is a small percentage, a very small percentage of people who come to see me. So for 95% of the population that's probably listening to this podcast, my top 5 tips to keep your pelvic floor healthy and functional is daily movement, which is walking. Your pelvic floor loves to go for walks, and your whole body does. So daily walking, 30 minutes and more. Daily movement snacks. So other than walking, you want to keep your lower back and your hip joints. You want to give them a bit of basic movements. You can do some hula hip circles. You can do some cat-cows. You can do sitting cat-cows, just like some pelvic tilts. You can do some squats, just like in the air, some knee bends. Basic stuff. Really, it's basic stuff. Walking, hip and lower back mobility.
Easy to do that anyone can implement.
Easy to do, yes. It's so easy to be healthy if you just have 5 minutes a day, seriously. Third thing is watch your toilet habits, okay? Please don't take your phone to the toilet. Only go to the toilet if you really have to, okay? So no just in case peeing. Just go to pee when your bladder is really full and asking for it. Don't go to the toilet if you don't have to poop yet, okay? If the train is not in the station, don't go. Wait for the right timing, then go. Put a little stool under your feet so your knees are elevated. This is the perfect position to poop, okay? If you sit in a 90-degree angle like you do on a regular chair, you will damage your pelvic floor over the years, okay? So put a stool under your feet. Don't spend a long time on the toilet. So if you're about like 10 minutes in and out for a big bowel movement, that's already tops. That's already a long time. You want to avoid straining at all costs. So no straining with big bowel movements.
Okay.
No straining with peeing. There's something that we poor women have to do sometimes in public toilets when we don't want to sit down. It's called power peeing, where you just kind of hover over the toilet.
That's my first time hearing that term.
Yes.
Power peeing.
Power peeing. So please stop with the power peeing. No hovering over the toilets, okay? If the toilet is so gross that you can't sit down, okay, there's 2 techniques you can do. One is you just flip open the whole, like the lid, how is it called? The toilet lid? Or
the seat. The toilet seat.
The toilet seat. You flip it open and you step on the toilet with your feet. And then you sit down in a squat, okay? So then you can relax and you can
sounds
pee.
Risky.
That it's for the advanced, exactly.
Yeah, for the advanced.
If you're less advanced, you just take a lot of toilet paper, put it on the seat, and then sit down on the toilet paper. There's a third technique where you just rest your arms on your legs and you try to relax your belly as much as you can to just not push the pee out. So the pee should flow out of your relaxed body. That's important. That's about the toileting, okay? So no pushing.
That was one tip, everything you just mentioned.
Yes, it was one tip. I told you I love to talk about all these things.
Yeah, please. This is the practical advice that everyone needs to hear. And I'm about to take some notes. So we don't want to strain. No straining at any cost, really.
Yes, no pushing out pee or poop. And keep it short and just go if you really have to. Exactly. So that's about the toileting. So I'm going from the
So
top.
number 1, we want to move.
Yes. Number 2, we said mobility for hips and lower back. Number 3, we said toilet habits. Okay. Number 4, what's your posture? So you don't want to be, for example, somebody who is tucking their butt under, tailbone tuckers, okay? So you want to have a nice little neutral lower back arch. You don't want to kind of like hang in your posture. There's some people, when you look at them from the side, you see that the pelvis is like sway to the front and like tucked under, and their shoulders are like rounded and kind of like slouched to the front.
Yep.
So there's actually studies, and I'll listen up everybody very carefully. There's actually studies that your posture can influence your libido and your orgasms. So if you have a shitty posture, you should correct it because it can have an influence on your libido and your ability to orgasm.
Incredible.
And your pelvic floor strength as well. Yeah.
Wow. Number 5.
Number 5. Number 5 is the breathing, as we talked about it. So there is a breath. It's called a 360-degree breath. So we want to make sure we can explore our breathing expansion all around. Okay. So for sure you heard about chest breath and belly breath.
I have, and I'll pause you if you don't mind for a second. There was, I heard a quote that said that today the Western person, the modern person, breathes to survive, not to live. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, look, I'm in shock. Like, people that come and see me, so many people, we need to start from scratch on how to breathe. And yeah, I love to teach that because it's so necessary for so many people. And there's just zero knowledge out there. Zero. People are like, wait, but shouldn't I always breathe in my belly? Somebody told me it's very good to breathe in my belly. And then I was like, yeah, but breathing is like working out. So if I tell you it's good to do push-ups, would that be the only exercise you will be doing all your life?
Probably not.
Probably not. So there will be pull-ups, there will be squats, right? So the same is with breathing. So again, as a yoga teacher, we call it pranayama, where we practice the breathing. There is so many different exercises as the breath goes, but I can tell you that the 2 most important breathing exercises that people can do at home would be the lateral ribcage breathing, where you can, for example, for women, when you wear a bra, the bra is going all around the ribs.
The lateral ribcage breathing.
Yes. So the bra is going all around the ribcage, right? For men, it's just like below the chest, the ribcage. You can feel that with your hands when you're grabbing left and right. And when you take a few deep breaths, you can feel how your ribcage is kind of expanding under your hands. So we have this ribcage expansion. For some people, it's relatively small. For other people, they can expand it really wide, as if you want to snap your bra apart. So that is one really important breath. Now, for some people, that is more easy to breathe in the upper areas of the chest. Those people might have more difficulties breathing into their belly. So there is another breathing technique, which is the belly breath, where we want to make sure that we are not breathing into our ribs too much, but actually channeling the breath down into our belly, and then feel how our belly is filling with air when we inhale, and then just relax when we exhale. Those are the 2 most common breathing techniques that I'm teaching in the beginning for people to really reconnect to their bodies.
Fantastic. But with the breathing then, is that something people should approach almost like a workout, like dedicate specific number of minutes to practicing those different breathing techniques? Or is it something they should be implementing on their day-to-day lives as they're writing emails, as they're driving cars, etc.?
So again, after so many years of working in this profession, I came to the conclusion that breathing is the essence of life. Without breathing, we would be dead. I came to this conclusion after.
Well done. Well done.
Thank you. No, why is breathing so important? And yes, my answer is yes. Everybody should dedicate mindful moments throughout their day to breathing, because it's the most basic and most controlling function of all. Your posture and all the functions in your body is related to your breath. And the reason why breathing needs to be implemented daily is because it's the gate to your consciousness. Before that, we talked about the unconscious and the conscious procedures and habits we're having. So when I'm asking people, for example, we can do it right now. We can now take a moment where we take deep breaths and we just feel inside. I'm going to ask you questions about your breathing.
Oh boy.
For example, where do you feel the breath in your body? Do you feel it in your chest? Do you feel it in your belly?
I feel it going towards my spine, I think, slowly going up and then making its way forward towards my chest.
Good. So you're already a step further. You already feel the way how the air is entering into your lungs, and then you feel the breath expansion. Exactly. So when we're doing this analyzation, we're literally going inside. Our senses are in this moment, and our senses are going internal. Okay? So when I'm asking you now, continue the breath and try now to play with the breath. Okay, so we're already going a step further. We're going from awareness to taking action. Okay, that can be already difficult for some people. So it's the great first step. So the breath is the gate to our awareness, and that's what we need to do first. So when I want to make a change with people and I want to teach them a lifestyle change, first of all, we need to bring to awareness what they're doing. The breath is the first step. If I want somebody to tell me how an exercise is feeling, I want them to describe me where their pain is and when do they feel their pain, they first of all need to be aware that this is happening in their body, which for so many people, we're so disconnected from the feelings that we have in our body that we first of all need to get back into the body. And when we are stressed and we're living in our world where we're always on the phone and all this external input that we're that's getting thrown at us, going inside is the first step, which is the hardest step for many people. So the breath is the first step for us to reconnect, to be aware of the unaware. What do you feel in your body is the most important question we should ask us when we do this breathing exercise.
Do you have people that think you're crazy?
Most of my friends, yeah.
Good. Good. It's probably a good sign. So if someone walks daily, does movement daily, moves their joints, follows your tips about going to the toilet, not pushing too hard, not going when it's unnecessary.
Good, you remember a lot.
I'm trying to. Number 4 was posture, watching your posture. And number 5 is trying to implement some breathing to live and not just autonomous breathing so you don't fall and die. So if the average person on the street implements those 5 things in their lives, which I think everyone or most people should be able to, the odds are that they'll have a healthy pelvic floor.
The odds, yeah.
Fantastic. So first, I will try to be more at least conscious of those things and how those small implementations in my life, my loved ones' lives can, or the listeners' lives can potentially get better, or maybe experience a bit less pain and just go through your days with less chronic pain, less discomfort is the word I'm looking for.
Yeah, living our best lives.
Our best lives, yeah. So you can focus on what you should be focusing on.
Yeah, and prevention, as you said, right? Preventional. Like, we don't want to even just develop pain. Like, we
maintenance,
Maintenance. We want to, be our best selves.
So that's those are the tips for really anyone, any person, right? I have 2 more questions that, again, might be important here. One is age. Where does age come in? Do kids experience
Kids have a lot of pelvic floor dysfunction.
So it's not a just an age thing. It's
Not at
people
all.
from just people.
People.
Uh,
From 0 to 100. Yeah.
wow, incredible.
Children, for example, can have a lot of rectal prolapses. We see that a lot. So when, again, there comes in the stress, there comes in emotions. So that's why it's so multi-layered. Again, for children, there's when they are stressed or when the parents are hurrying them on the toilet and telling them faster, faster. And then when children press a lot on the toilet and their tissues are still very soft. So what can happen is that their rectum can prolapse. And that's something that there is also a lot of surgeries, and that in the children's age, that's a very common surgery in that age. So that's why it's so important that parents know how to do correct toilet training when they're children. And if parents would do better with toilet training their children, then I wouldn't have as much work today. So most of my female clients that I see and their bladder dysfunctions comes from wrong toileting since childhood. For example, the mother telling her daughter every time before we leave the house, go to the toilet now, because then maybe we might be in the car and then you can. So that's where the just-in-case peeing gets trained. And
Tip number 3.
Tip number 3, exactly. So don't go just in case. So it starts with childhood, really. That's where pelvic floor health is starting. Take your time. No pushing. Explain your children about their genitals, about their functions. Nothing to be ashamed about. Teach them how to clean them, how to take care of them. And yeah, that's like for the children, and then as well for elderly. By the way, peeing your pants is not something that is natural in higher age. We always think, oh yeah, people get old, they poop their pants. That's what's happening when they're over 70.
Yeah.
But it's not a natural process of aging. It's actually pelvic floor dysfunction.
Well, so even so if someone is old of the senior age and they are experiencing what you just said, then it's also a reason for concern and maybe a pelvic floor issue.
Yeah, we need to see when the prevention should come in. There's things we can change, and there's things where we should have changed it a bit earlier, but it's never too late. For sure, there's always something that can be done since it's muscles and they can be trained.
Yeah.
But the earlier, the better. And that's why everyone that thinks they might have a question about their pelvic floor, just go and get it checked. It's like the dentist, like your gyno. Please take care of your body and don't wait, because otherwise it's going to be just more work and harder work.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong. You post information online on your social media platforms.
Yes.
Where can people find you?
Yes. So you can find me on Instagram, Sonja, downline, the physio.
Sonja _.
Underscore, thank you.
Sonja _ the physio.
Sonja _ the physio.
On Instagram. Perfect. And that's the social media platform you use generally?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. I was going to ask you also about sitting, just sitting, because everyone sits, right? We sit, probably too much, but most things we do, we sit. And it's, I know we always hear about posture, and we always hear about back pain, and we always hear about all these different things. So if let's say you're sitting with the perfect posture, let's say you're following all the rules, sitting correctly, limiting the time that you sit, but does the action of sitting affect in any way the pelvic floor?
So we can go back to what we talk about, the posture. So posture affects us, point. Yeah. There's different kinds of postures, and of course if we sit for 8 hours, and that's less good, right? Sitting, we know it's not good. So sitting itself, for example, is a position that is not as bad for the pelvic floor, but again, any posture that we hold for a long time is damaging our body.
So we want to just move.
Just
Moving.
Switch it up.
Yeah.
Get a desk where you can stand. Maybe sit on one of those yoga balls, or we call them pregnancy balls. That's amazing for the pelvic floor. Just get some movement snacks, as we said before. Implement some movement breaks in between. Just switch up the posture. Do maybe some stretches. Some deep breathing in between. Open your chest.
Yeah. May I ask you? May I ask you what's your mission when it comes to this? Are you still digging down this rabbit hole? Do you have new rabbit holes you're heading down when it comes to the human body?
So my mission is basically what we're doing right now, and I'm super happy that we're doing that. We are spreading awareness. So that's my mission, because I came to the conclusion after treating so many people that we just really need to spread information. That's all we need to do. Like, now I told you how to, I don't know, maybe there's some new knowledge that you took out of this, and you're like, oh, so I'm just gonna stop do that, and boom, we don't have another client with whatever dysfunctions. Okay, so because we did not talk enough about the pelvic floor in the past, I feel that a big part of my job and a big part of helping my clients is just providing them information. It's that simple. It's just explaining you how to do it, and then you do it, and that's it. And that's my mission right now. It's just getting the information out there, going to as many podcasts as I can, speaking to as many people as I can, telling my clients to tell their friends how to use the toilet properly, and so on. And don't be ashamed if you have symptoms, and talk to your healthcare provider. If you experience pain with intercourse, please talk to your partner and come see a pelvic floor therapist. Please do not suffer in silence. That is really my main mission, and that's really close to my heart. Other than that, I am going to learn and to study more about sexual dysfunctions in the future. I signed up for some very interesting studies. I'm not going to talk about it in detail because I'm just starting to study that. Yeah. But I'm specifying a bit more
we'll
dysfunctions.
be excited to hear about it when when you're ready to.
Exactly. Yeah. So I will definitely go down the rabbit hole of sexual dysfunctions and sexuality a bit more to provide my clients with even better also psychological nuances, right? I'm still a physiotherapist, but in some situations people are opening up, and then you want to provide them with a good framing and refer them whenever you can.
Yeah, look, I do not think you're crazy. I think you're a gem to society, to the culture, and I think that keep following your mission, keep spreading the word, because understanding the body better has helped my life personally, has helped people around me change their lives completely, because again, less pain, less discomfort will lead you just to be more relaxed, more happy, and more focused on the things that you want to be focused about. So thank you for being here. Thank you for talking. I know you have a lot to say, and hopefully we have you back to talk about other rabbit holes that you're digging down. So Sonja, thank you very much.
Dani, thank you so much for having me.